Let me just start off by saying that McFarlane is the kind of guy that buys something at a store for like $9.99, hands the cashier a $10 bill, and says, "Keep the change." Like, what is that cashier supposed to do with an extra penny? I just don't get it. Now, I've never stood behind McFarlane in a grocery line or anything like that, but that's just the kind of guy that he strikes me as. Like, you know what? Keep that penny, spend it wisely. Don't spend it all in one place. Anyways, all jokes aside, McFarlane, I have a love-hate relationship with him. I've said it before. Sometimes he's an absolute genius. Sometimes I want to just drop kick him, and today is kind of like a perfect example of that. And I wanted to talk about some of the newer releases, some of the newer reveals. I try to keep up with McFarlane stuff as much as I possibly can, especially considering we're nearing the end of McFarlane holding the DC license. But in today's video, I'm going to sneak in some other things that are pretty interesting that are not necessarily DC multiverse related, but I think are definitely very intriguing and important to talk about. And the first one, right off the bat, is that new Berserker action figure. I personally read the first couple of issues of this comic book series. I liked it. It was pretty cool. I will say it was kind of overbloated and a little bit overrated. I remember there being like a 1 in 1,000 issue. Like the amount of comic books that were moving for this particular line was insane. Like these comic shops were ordering hundreds, potentially thousands of these comic books. There were like a ton of different covers for it, and McFarlane actually getting the rights to make this action figure is absolutely phenomenal. We know that it's based on Keanu Reeves. That's like his little baby. He's nurtured it, he's grown it, and now it's going to be a live action film. So if you guys are interested in picking up this figure, I definitely suggest you guys do. It will be $49.99, but it comes with an insane amount of weapons, an insane amount of accessories. I think there's like an extra faceplate. I think total there are 3 head sculpts and then an extra faceplate. At least that's what I can see in the image. There are like 3 different arms, a ton of different weapons. I'm going to assume that some of these may have been reused from McFarlane's little accessory pack, but still, to pack this much into a $50 action figure, I get it. It's a little bit of a hefty price. Not everybody's going to be able to purchase it or be interested in it, but at least at that $50 price point, you're getting quite a bit. You're getting a lot of options. And if you have read the comic book, John Wick's character here is essentially like immortal. He goes and just gets, blown up, and there's flesh getting ripped off of his skin. So it's really interesting. If you guys haven't read it, I definitely suggest you guys do so before, any trailers or any big announcements come down. But I will say, if you guys are interested, definitely pick it up. I think there will be one version at the Walmart convention not too long in the future. I think it's like in a couple of days. Well, by the time I uploaded this, it might be the day of, but it will be at that Walmart con. And I think in the foreseeable future, we'll get like a stripped down version without the extra limbs, without the extra arms, and then just maybe a couple of weapons and some extra hands. So if you guys are interested in just waiting it out, I would probably do it if you don't want to spend $50. But as I said, even at that $50 price point, I still think that it's worth it. There's enough in the package. There's enough being offered that it makes sense. And it's worth mentioning that McFarlane didn't really talk anything about retooling or great articulation. It's a completely different situation, whereas in like the Maximum Spider-Man, where they actually talked about retooling and a brand new body mold and brand new articulation scheme, this is definitely not the case here with his McFarlane figure. So if you guys are interested, definitely keep an eye out. As I said, I think later down the line, within like a few months, we're probably going to get a stripped down version with less accessories for a much smaller price point. But just lastly, I did want to touch on a few of these extra accessories because I think they're worth mentioning. It appears you'll have like the basic look or the basic figure, and then you'll be able to port on things like, for example, a bulletproof vest. You'll have 3 different arms, all of them showcasing various blood, gore, and battle damage. It's a really intricate detail. It appears it will also come with a couple of extra hands, as well as like 9 different weapons or 9 different guns, including, or I should say excluding, a blade that is also an extra accessory. So altogether, in terms of like just weaponry, you're getting 10 total, if I'm counting correctly. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to tell you what each and every single one of these weapons name is, because the only way that I describe these type of weapons, because I'm not a gun guy, is I'll just describe them by the sound that I think that each one of these guns make, like kabloom or whatever sound machine guns make. That's just how I describe weaponry. Now, it's not clear as to what this line is going to be called. I did mention that there was kind of breaking news regarding a new line that McFarlane was going to launch, which I believe was referred to as like the Elite line, where it was going to be $50 to $60 price points for collectibles or action figures that had a ton of different accessories. So this may be the first iteration of that. I didn't read any of those details in the description, but I'm just going to assume that this might be a little taste of what that 50 to 60 Elite price point is going to be. We also got a pretty good look at the Justice Lords Batman, as well as the 1 million Batman. If I'm not mistaken, the 1 million is essentially based on a Batman from like way far into the future. It's supposed to be a Batman that like kind of reconstructs the DC universe from scrap. It's kind of it's a really dark and crazy storyline. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I read the entire comic book series, but I do remember reading a brief description about it when it first came out. As far as the Justice Lords, I only remember this particular version or this suit from the animated series, if I'm not mistaken. I could be confusing it, but that's where I mostly remember it from. There might have been a comic book series that featured this team up. I could be wrong. Like I said, I haven't really paid attention to too many DC projects recently, but both of them are pretty intricate. I will say the 1 million Batman definitely draws my attention the most. I've said it before, like, I get it, McFarlane does give us like, well, a million Batmans on a yearly basis, it feels like, but at least, and I've said this before, at least he continues to give us multiple different iterations of Batman. It's not like the same old Batman with different color scheme or just a repaint of the same one. Like, we're getting the Silver Age, we're getting the Dark Knight Returns, the Last Night on Earth. We've gotten a few other, live action adaptations, whether it's the Christian Bale one or the George Clooney, so on and so forth. Like, we got the Tim Burton version not too long ago. So at least there's variations in the source material, not so much in the characters, but at least we're getting Batmans that kind of stand on their own in the display. And this is definitely one of those that if you throw up, it's really going to draw people's eyes, and it's going to make them wonder, like, what Batman is that necessarily? And if somebody's looking at your display, they might ask about that particular one, because it's definitely not what we're used to in a displayer. That's not the like prototypical Batman suit that we usually see. Now, I did try to look up more images, and I was able to find a couple, and it appears, at least on the surface, that it will only come with a couple of batarangs, and I'm going to assume that those are just repainted old batarangs. I'm a little bit disappointed in that. The figure does look to have really good solid sculpt, wired cape, a great looking head sculpt, but I would love to see some new Batman accessories as the year is winding down. I'm going to assume that he's probably not going to do it because of the fact that he's losing the license, so we might not see any new Batman accessories or any new cool features. It's mostly just going to be retooling or reusing old body molds with a new head sculpt included. So I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure if it's like a brand new body mold. I've said it before, I think it's really difficult for me to be able to tell, especially with McFarlane, just because he reutilizes like that same generic body mold pretty consistently. When it comes down to Batman, it's a little bit more difficult. But it does appear that there may be some newer pieces on the upper torso. Only time will tell once we get better pictures. But yeah, I did look up some images, and it appears that both of them are just reusing old Batman accessories, which honestly I'm a little bit sad about, but I completely get it because, McFarlane is essentially losing the license within the next few months. And then I also did get a closer look at that Dr. Fate action figure, which I've already seen a couple of people already have in hand. I'm not sure how it is that happened, but yeah, there is a new Silver Age Dr. Fate. I think we have maybe this is the third or fourth different version of Dr. Fate. I know we got the live action Black Adam version as well as the video game iteration. So we've received a number of different Dr. Fates. But this one, I mean, come on, we're getting a lot of Silver Age DC comic book characters, and this is just another prime example of that. I love the outfit. I love the suit. It's very reminiscent of that era. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that particular cape is the first time, or I should say that particular Dr. Fate is the first time that we're ever getting a wired cape with this particular character, which is pretty interesting. They usually reserve the wired capes for like the marquee characters. We've seen it, for example, with Batman and Superman, but not so much with like the C-list characters. I know we got Captain Boomerang with you know, the wired jacket, which was pretty intricate. But for the most part, they reserve that for the marquee characters. But the more and more we get deeper into the DC multiverse for McFarlane, which I guess the deeper we get into it, it's, you know, nearing the end of the line. But the further we get into it, it appears that more figures are going to consistently have wired capes, which I think is a phenomenal little feature from McFarlane, which I know we already kind of hinted at, but we're definitely seeing it more on display now. And then lastly, I thought I would give you guys a quick little glimpse at this Rat City Spawn action figure. And I'll be brutally honest with you guys, I haven't really followed Spawn in quite some time. I do have some figures here and there in my display or in my collection, but overall, I tend to just gravitate more towards the DC multiverse, and it's very difficult to keep track of like everything that McFarlane does. However, this one really drew my attention. It's essentially like a Spawn in a mech suit. I love the design on this. It's a more modern Spawn character, and I definitely really like this. I'm very interested to see how the articulation scheme is going to look here. I'm going to assume this is like a brand new body mold, and it appears those are brand new accessory pieces. I'm not 100% sure. I will say there are two different variations floating around. I'm not sure which one is the original one, because there was one showed off at Toy Fair, and then there is a promotional image showcasing the figure, and they have a different color palette for the suit overall, so I'm not sure which one is accurate. Maybe there's one that's a gold label exclusive. We'll obviously find out more in the foreseeable future, but I am definitely gravitating towards this figure. As I said, I don't collect a lot of Spawn, but this is one of those that if I find in person, if I take a closer look and it completely sells me, I will definitely be taking it home. So there you guys have it. I just wanted to give you guys a quick little rundown of what's going on over there with McFarlane. As I said, it's very sad. These last few months are going to be very heavy. We don't know exactly how the transition is going to go. And, you know, as much as you may hate McFarlane, this is definitely the end of an era. I would love to see McFarlane continue with the DC universe, not because, as I said, I'm a loyalist of him, but just because I want that consistency. It feels like we're going to have to start all over again. And I will definitely be there for the Mattel universe. It is what it is. I love DC and I love the collectibles, but like I said, definitely a very painful transition, a very painful era for collectors overall. Only time will tell exactly how things play out within the next few months. But I'll try to keep you guys updated on any new figures that McFarlane decides to announce. So if you guys are interested in any of these, definitely stay tuned. Pre-order windows will start to pop up here in the next few days or in the next couple of weeks. And I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Let me know which figure you guys are looking forward to the most. Which one do you feel like you need in your collection? As I said, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts down below. Stay safe out there. And as always, make sure to enjoy the hobby. That's the most important part of all this. Make sure you pose your figures, photograph them, just enjoy them. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.